Coach Ron here with Wise Coaching, WIISE coaching.com. And today I'm going to tell you a little bit about transitions and how much they matter. They're actually the fourth discipline in triathlon. And you want to get good at these, just like you want to get good at your swimming, biking, and running. So let's talk about triathlon transitions. First of all, not all triathlons use a traditional transition setup, which would be one transition area for both your transition one and transition two. In other words, your transition from swim to bike, and the same transition area for bike to run. They're not all like that. That's okay. We can talk about ways that you can get good transitions no matter what kind of setup you've got. In a typical transition area, all your items would be on the ground by your bike. So when you get out of the swim, your bike and your stuff is there. You come back on the bike and your stuff is there for your run. However, some races may have separate transition one and two areas. That's okay. We just need to figure out how to get through those as quickly as possible as well. Some races, like a lot of Ironman races, you'll have gear bags. You'll have a separate gear bag for your cycling gear and a separate one for your run gear. That's okay too. We can figure that out. Some races may allow nothing on the ground in the transition area, but they will allow shoes on your bike, again, not on the ground, or the helmets on the bike. Again, you just need to figure out what the rules are and abide by those and get in and out of transition as quickly as possible. And transition times do matter. I want you to practice your transitions. I want you to think about your transitions before you get there, because you can literally lose a couple of seconds, you can lose a couple of minutes, you can lose a lot more than that if you're not efficient in transition. And that as a result could, make the difference between first and second in your age group, or the difference between 22nd and 18th in your age group. So let's get good at them. It's the fourth discipline, so let's figure it out. Okay, one of the absolute keys to fast transitions is lean is mean. You can see in this simulated transition area I just did out in the parking lot one day, but this is what it should look like. Okay, it should be very lean. You don't need a bunch of junk laying around, and we'll talk about that specifically. But the more stuff you got, the slower your transitions are going to be. The more stuff you got, the more stress it's going to be. The more stuff you've got, the more mistakes you're going to make. So take as little space as possible in the transition area. Don't bring a bunch of extra junk that you don't need, and start these best practices now. No need to wait until you've got a big important race. Do them on every race. And again, like I say, do them in practice as well. Okay, so setting up your transition area, this is not a great example because it doesn't have the typical rack, but when you do rack your bike, rack it by the saddle, not by the handlebars. This will make it easier for everybody around you, and you'll notice that in most races they'll give you that instruction. So just plan on that, racking your bike by the saddle, not by the handlebars. It's much quicker to get your bike out that way anyway. And then only lay race items out. You don't need a lot of other stuff, items like your backpack and so on. You don't need that stuff laying around. And then your bike items, when you do have them laid out, should be, this is when they're laid out on the ground, should be closest to you so you can get in and out of your bike stuff quickly. And then your run stuff, when you come into transition, will be behind where your run stuff was. So set it up that way, it's more efficient. You'll notice this is another simulated picture, but you notice all the stuff laying around in the transition area that you don't need out. And if you go to a race, this is no exaggeration. You'll see people with a lot more stuff than that out too. So you don't need a towel or a mat on the ground. Doesn't really do anything for you. Typically, when you come out of the swim, you'll be in a lake or an ocean or a river or something, and you'll have stuff on your feet. I have never found it a problem to get directly from the parking lot or transition area into my shoes without rinsing my feet off or wiping them off on anything. So you don't need that. Okay. You don't need a bucket of water to rinse your feet off. Um, don't need it. The stuff's going to fall off your feet, and whatever's left in there is not going to bother your feet. Your morning clothes, you don't need those laying out. Those should be back in your backpack, and your backpack well out of the way of your transition area. You don't need extra hydration and nutrition laying around. Whatever you have on your bike is plenty. You don't need to grab two more bottles when you're in the transition area and drink some water and drink your nutrition and eat a bar. That should all be on your bike already. Your bike pump, what's that doing out? Okay, put everything away, nice, clean, and neat. That's the fastest way you can get in and out of transition. Okay, so what about some options in T1 for the bike? One of the options is you can have your bike shoes clipped in. Now, this isn't for all races. You need to check the rules on this one. Some won't let you do that. But if they do allow you to do that, that's an option. You can clip them in. And in fact, you can put rubber bands on them, and you'll see some people doing this. You'll see it at more short course races than the half and full Ironman. But they'll take a rubber band and stretch it between the back of their shoe and like their skewer, for example. But you do not want to do this one unless you've got it well rehearsed. Take my word for it. I've had situations where I didn't rehearse quite enough and it didn't come off that well. So practice that one, but it will save you time if you can pull it off. Putting your bike shoes on the ground, yeah, that's a good idea, and I think most novices will be with that, and a lot of people that are seasoned will do that as well because it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be that much slower, maybe a couple of seconds, but sometimes seconds count, sometimes it doesn't. So you can put your shoes on in transition and run your bike out of transition in your shoes. That might work. It kind of depends on the course, depends on your shoes. Or, and this is one that I've used before quite well, again, depends on the transition area, is I will run with my bike and my shoes outside of transition to the mountain line, put them on there, and then go. This could actually be a lot quicker depending on the setup and how far you are away from the transition exit. Um, Wearing socks on the bike is sort of optional. For most races, I don't use socks, but if you do, here's the best way to do it. Put your socks on before the race, pull them up, and then roll them down so they're kind of like little donuts, and then leave them by your shoes. That way, when you get to transition, you just have to pull up the toe and then roll the rest of them up. Another one is to have the helmet on the ground or on the bars. I've seen way too many races where triathletes have put their helmet on the bike, kind of left it precariously on their aero bars. And if there's any wind or if somebody knocks your bike, your helmet could go flying, and it may be difficult to find it. I've actually seen that in races before. So consider putting it on the ground and putting it on in transition there, or hanging it by the strap from your aero bars, and that way it won't go anywhere if your bike gets blown around or not. Race bib on the race belt. This is a great way to go. You'll need to check again the race rules. Sometimes you need to have your bib on during the bike. Sometimes you don't. It doesn't make any sense to me why any race at all would require it on the bike, but sometimes they do. But consider getting yourself a race belt if for your bib. It seems to be a lot easier for me to get in and out of that. Here's a couple ideas for T2 for the run, transitioning from the bike to the run. First of all, this is an obvious one. Make sure your shoes are facing the proper way so that you can put them on easier. Sounds pretty logical, but you'd be surprised what you see out there. And if you didn't wear socks on the bike, you're only going to wear them for the run. Same thing, put them on, roll them down. When you put them on, you really have to just put them on the toe and then roll them back up again. And then the race bib on the belt, as opposed to pinning it on, I think is a much better idea. Pretty much all races require you to have a bib at least on the run, if not for the bike and the run. So make sure you got that base covered. And then dress while you're running. So you'll see a lot of people doing, fussing with, their hats and their sunglasses and their race belt and all this stuff. Really, you should just have all that stuff, all in a nice little package in transition. So you just grab it with one hand and you put your hat or visor on when you're running. You put your sunglasses on when you're running. You put your race belt on while you're running. You're dealing with your nutrition while you're running. That's going to save you seconds, if not minutes, for some of you out there. So dress while you're running. And then here's some other little tips that may or may not apply. But first of all, and this is critical, is to make sure you know where your bike is racked. You want to make sure that you can find it when you're transitioning from swim to bike. Might be some confusion. You're trying to get your wetsuit off. You're dealing with a lot of stuff. So make sure you know where you're racked. You can use, different mileposts. Maybe there's a telephone pole or a tree or a trash can or, something nearby. You'll see a lot of people, they'll hang flags or towels off their rack or, blow up balloons and have them there. Whatever it takes, you need to make sure that you can find your bike and transition area. Because if you've ever watched a triathlon and people in transition, you're going to find that there's a lot of people that don't know exactly where their bikes are racked. Start with that one. And then use a backpack, not a duffel bag. You want to make sure that you're mobile getting to and from the race site. So you can put your backpack on and you can deal with stuff with your hands and not be holding a duffel bag. Race morning, hit the potty early, hit it often. It's a terrible feeling when and it could be quite a few minutes before you leave transition and you're actually able to start your race. So you want to make sure that you're good to go. Another one that I typically do is I'll take a pin, a safety pin, to my timing chip strap and pin it together so that if somebody accidentally pulls on it while we're swimming and they pull it off, I won't have to deal with the timing tent and go back and get another timing chip. And then the other one is to put your race bib on a belt rather than pinning it on. And some of the race belts are pretty cool. They've got space for storage. You can put your salt tablets in there. You can put your gels and so forth. So I like that option a lot. Here are a few tips regarding your bike. First of all, check your tire pressure. Um, I jumped on my trainer this morning and I found that my tire was low. So don't assume that because you filled your tires up maybe the night before that they're going to be good to go race morning. Check it race morning to make sure that you've got enough air in your tires. Make sure your bike is in the correct gear. There's quite a few races that you're going to have to come out of transition and go up a hill. So in that case, you want to make sure you're in a nice low gear so that you can get out of there without having to switch gears or fall off your bike trying to get up a hill. Double check your brakes, and the way to do that is to simply, spin your tire. If it spins freely, then your brakes aren't sticking. If it's not spinning freely, the time to fix it is before you start the race, obviously. Make sure your shifting is working. And particularly if you've got electronic shifting, you want to make sure that you charge that up at least the day before to make sure that your electronic shifting is working race morning. And then your nutrition and hydration, make sure that that's all on board and check to make sure your bike computer's turned on so that when you jump on the bike, your computer is activated. Okay, so I hope those tips gave you, something that you can use on race day. I know that some of those are pretty basic. I've been doing this for 40 years now, actually over 40 years. I've been racing triathlon and I've done over 200. So these are all tips from my own race experience. And if you've enjoyed these, I hope you'll like and subscribe to my channel and consider signing up with me as your coach. I'm a TriDot coach, and right now I'm offering a free 14-day trial of personalized coaching. No credit card required. After 14 days, you can either continue on with any one of 6 payment options, ranging from $14.99 a month to $450 a month. If you don't, no obligations, no hard feelings, and I'll see you at the races.